Okay, picture this. It's an incredible contrast, almost cinematic, really.
Mm.
And it gets right to the heart of the puzzle in language learning.
Mm-hmm.
On one side, you've got Julie. She's 21, British, moves to Cairo, doesn't speak a word of Arabic. 9 days later, her husband gets called away from military service.
Yeah.
45 days. Gone.
Wow.
So she's basically marooned with his family, who speak zero English, total, relentless linguistic isolation.
That sounds, well, terrifying, honestly, but also maybe the ultimate test case for that whole sink or swim idea.
Exactly. And the researchers who studied her found that after just 2.5 years of this immersion, she reached near-native fluency in Egyptian Arabic.
Near native, that's amazing.
Yeah, local Egyptians couldn't even tell she was British. She's like the poster child for total immersion success.
Okay, hold that image of Julie, because we need to look at the flip side now.
Right, the flip side, meet Alberto. He moves from Costa Rica to Boston, specifically, to get better at English.
So he's motivated.
Totally motivated, completely surrounded by English, working, shopping, daily interactions for 1.5 years. Seems like total immersion.
It sounds like it. So what happened?
Well, after all that time, his English was still really, really basic. The researchers actually described it as pigeonized.
Pigeonized. That's a key word there. It doesn't just mean like limited vocabulary.
No.
No, it means the language structure itself became kind of oversimplified and functionally frozen. He learned just enough English to get by.
Right.
But it plateaued. It just stopped developing, stuck at this really rudimentary level.
So, same context, basically total immersion, but these radically different outcomes. Julie thrives, Alberto stalls.
That's the puzzle.
That's the core puzzle we're diving into today. Because total immersion, or TI, it's the oldest approach out there, right? It predates any formal teaching methods.
Oh, absolutely. Way back. John Locke, writing in, 1693, he called conversation the original way of learning a language. And for centuries, just being there in the place, that was seen as the gold standard. But as your examples clearly show, just exposure isn't the whole story. It's obviously not enough on its own.
So our mission today is to get past that simple idea of learning by osmosis. We need to unpack the source material and really find those hidden ingredients. Why does TI work brilliantly for someone like Julie, but just fail for someone like Alberto?
We need to find the mechanism, what's really going on.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack Julie first. When researchers started looking closely at her in the 90s, they weren't just counting the hours of exposure, they were looking at what she did.
Right.
And they realized she wasn't just a passive sponge soaking it all up. She was actually incredibly strategic, maybe even unconsciously so.
Well, she kind of had to be, didn't she? I mean,
Right.
She literally had no escape hatch. If she wanted anything, even just water, she had to figure out how to ask.
Yeah.
That sheer necessity, I think that must have sparked her strategies.
Necessity was definitely the engine, yeah. But the research gives us a framework for how she succeeded. It differentiates between input and intake.
Input versus intake. Okay, what's the difference?
Input is just everything you hear, all the language swirling around you. Intake, though, that's the language material you actually process, the stuff you notice and internalize. And Julie, she was a master of intake.
Okay, so what specific actions, what strategies made her so good at intake?
Well, the sources point to several key things she was doing very deliberately. First, she kept a notebook.
The notebook.
Yeah, she jotted down words, expressions, anything she could understand. She was consciously tracking the input.
Okay.
She didn't just hear sounds. She actively started noticing patterns, like verb endings, when they kept showing up. And crucially, when her in-laws corrected her, which, can be tough in that situation, she paid really close attention. She saw corrections as data, not criticism.
That's a huge mindset shift.
It is. And she also memorized whole chunks, formulaic phrases like, how do you ask for, or can I help? These gave her conversational footholds.
So she basically turned this incredibly stressful situation into her own active learning lab.
Pretty much, yeah.
Now, if we contrast that with someone who didn't take those steps, it really highlights why just being immersed isn't enough.
Exactly. Let's look at Wes. He was a Japanese immigrant in Hawaii, studied for 3 years.
Okay.
Nice guy, friendly, socially integrated, constantly interacting in English. Seemed like the perfect setup.
Really?
But after 3 years, his language development was minimal. It was described as frozen.
Frozen? What? He was talking to people all the time.
Because his communication was good enough. People understood him, they liked him, so there was no real internal push for him to get more accurate and more complex. He just hit a plateau because good enough was, good enough for his daily life. He never needed to move beyond it.
Right. So this leads to the key concept from the research, doesn't it? The thing that connects Julie's success and Wes's plateau. It's Immersion Plus.
Exactly. Immersion gives you the quantity, just the sheer volume of language exposure. But to get past that pigeonized stage, that functional freeze, you need these three quality components added on top.
Okay, component one.
Component one, focus attention on form. This is Julie with her notebook. It means actively noticing the details, the patterns.
Wait, so does that mean I have to become like a grammar nerd even if I just want to chat with people? That sounds kind of draining.
Huh. Not necessarily a grammar nerd, no, but definitely a pattern recognizer. It's more about active observation.
Okay.
If you don't consciously focus your attention, all that massive input just kind of washes over you. It stays noise. It doesn't become useful data. Julie did it naturally because the stakes were so high for her.
That makes sense. Okay, so Wes clearly missed component two, which is a push for precision.
Absolutely. Wes was fine with good enough. Julie, maybe because of her situation or personality, aimed for accuracy. She listened to and learned from those corrections.
Right.
Immersion on its own often rewards just getting your meaning across. You know, you get the beer you ordered, people laugh at your joke, but it doesn't necessarily reward perfect grammar. The learner often has to bring that desire for accuracy themselves.
Okay, makes sense. And component three.
Component three is retrieval and use.
Yeah.
You have to actively pull out and use the language you're learning or have memorized. It's not enough to just passively recognize a phrase when you hear it.
You need to be able to produce it.
Yes. Produce it, deploy it in conversation quickly and effectively.
You know, this brings up a really great example of someone who sort of manufactured this retrieval practice. Marcos Kreutzberger.
Ah, Don Francisco, the legendary TV host.
The very same. He learned English as a teenager in New York.
And his method was pretty clever, wasn't it? He kind of created his own necessity.
Totally ingenious.
Yeah.
The sources say he needed conversation practice, but maybe not super high-pressure situations.
Right.
So what did he do? He'd look for older people on the street, people who didn't seem like they were in a rush.
Okay.
And he'd ask them for directions.
Yeah?
He didn't actually need the directions.
Ah, that's brilliant.
He just needed low-stress, reliable conversation practice. He was manufacturing retrieval opportunities on the fly.
Love that. But he didn't just stop at talking, did he?
No. He was strategic. He kept his own personal dictionary, his lexicon of new words. He read newspapers, watched TV. And then, this is key, he made a conscious effort to mentally translate everything happening around him, just constantly processing.
So that combination, manufactured retrieval, that focused attention on words and patterns, plus the constant exposure, that's a perfect little encapsulation of Immersion Plus in action.
It really is a great illustration. But even with all that effort, the sources show there's still a pretty clear limit to what Immersion, even Immersion Plus, typically achieves on its own.
Yeah, and that limit is often literacy.
That's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
Julie spoke Egyptian Arabic like a native speaker. People couldn't tell she wasn't Egyptian, yet she never really learned to read or write Arabic fluently.
Why not?
Because her immersion context was entirely oral. It was social, functional. Nobody ever asked her to write an essay or read a complex article. Her needs didn't include literacy.
And the source material is really clear on this point. If your goal includes reading and writing, especially academic reading and writing, dealing with abstract concepts just relying on social immersion usually isn't going to cut it.
You need explicit instruction for that.
Generally, yes. You usually need some kind of formal, explicit teaching to really master those literacy skills.
Okay, so this raises a big question for teachers, for educators. How do you actually bring these powerful ideas from Immersion Plus into a classroom? You know, you can't replicate 12 hours a day of exposure.
No way.
And you definitely can't replicate the life-or-death survival urgency Julie felt.
Right. You can't truly replicate pure total immersion in a classroom. It's just not feasible. But what you can do is borrow its effectiveness by deliberately integrating those key strategies we talked about.
And the best example of this working really well in a structured setting.
It's got to be the Canadian-French immersion programs. They're widely seen as, the success story for achieving high proficiency in a school context.
And the key reason they work so well is precisely because they aren't just pure unstructured immersion.
Right.
They have critical supports built in.
Exactly right. They systematically address those three components of Immersion Plus. They have highly proficient teachers that ensures accurate, quality input. They explicitly build in language instruction and give targeted feedback that takes care of the push for precision and focused attention on form.
Okay.
They're usually in well-resourced schools,
Okay.
and this is also crucial. There's typically support for the student's first language, their L1, at home. So academic concepts learned in French are still grounded in their native tongue.
So if we loop back to our earlier examples, to Alberto and Wes, the picture becomes really clear.
Yeah. Alberto, he lacked integration, sure, but also those deliberate strategies. He wasn't doing the pluses part.
Right. And Wes, he was integrated, friendly, but he lacked either the internal necessity or the external instruction to push him beyond good enough accuracy.
The research really backs this up. Relying on immersion alone, it's basically a gamble. For reliable, sustainable success, you need that combination. Immersion plus deliberate strategies plus some form of explicit instruction.
Okay, so let's distill this. What does this all mean for you, the listener? Whether you're learning a language yourself or you're teaching others, we can pull out 4 clear principles directly from these sources.
All right, principle 1. Quantity matters, but it's not enough on its own. Maximize your exposure. Get as much target language input as you can. Use authentic stuff, listen to the radio, watch movies. Just get that volume up.
But quantity isn't king. Principle 2. Quality matters more. Focus your attention. This is the crucial bit. You have to actively notice the patterns. You need to practice retrieving the language, pulling it out, not just passively recognizing it.
Yeah, don't just let it wash over you. Hunt for those grammar points you struggle with. Isolate them. Work on them.
Principle 3. Teach strategies explicitly. We can't just assume learners will figure out Julie's tricks on their own.
Right.
We need to actively teach them how to use vocabulary notebooks well, how to spot patterns, how to use those ready-made formulaic chunks, and even how to create their own online immersion using things like language exchange apps or YouTube.
Yeah, give them the tools. And finally, principle 4. Combine immersion-like activities with instruction. Don't fall into the trap of thinking it'll all just happen through osmosis. Whether you're self-studying or in a class, build in specific times to focus explicitly on form, on grammar, and get targeted feedback.
That's how you avoid hitting that West-style plateau.
Yeah.
Okay, let's make this super practical. For anyone listening who teaches or even just runs a study group, the sources suggest 3 really concrete activities you could try, like tomorrow. Things inspired by that high-stakes immersion context.
Okay, activity 1. The 10-minute immersion challenge. Start your class or your study session with just 10 minutes of pure target language input. Could be a video clip, a story, a podcast bit. The rule, absolutely no translation allowed. Students have to use context, gestures, what they already know to figure out the meaning. It mimics how Julie had to cope, forcing the brain to process meaning under a bit of pressure.
I like that. Builds that contextual muscle. Okay, activity 2.
Activity 2. Create target language-only zones, but make them supportive. Designate certain times or tasks, maybe a group discussion, planning a project where only the target language is allowed.
Okay, but the key here is not to make it feel punishing, right? You don't want students just sitting there mute because they're scared to make a mistake.
Absolutely not. The crucial step is what you do before you start the zone. You explicitly teach them the phrases they need to ask for help in the target language.
Like, how do you say? Or can you repeat that slowly?
Exactly. Give them the linguistic tools to navigate the zone. It's like giving them an escape hatch within the immersion zone itself so they don't feel forced to just revert to their first language.
Clever. Okay, and activity 3.
Activity 3, virtual immersion homework. Assign specific mandatory engagement with authentic stuff outside of class time. Watch this YouTube channel about cooking, listen to the short daily news podcast, spend 20 minutes on a language exchange site.
And the key is they have to do something with it.
Yes, they have to report back, maybe share one new word they learned or one interesting thing they noticed. It shifts the focus from textbook exercises to using the language as a real tool for interaction and learning in the wild.
Got it. Okay, so wrapping this all up, if we go back to Julie and Alberto one last time, the big takeaway from all this research seems undeniable. Immersion itself, it's basically a context, not a method.
Right, it's the environment.
Exactly, and success within that environment.
Yeah.
It hinges on the deliberate strategies applied within it. Things like necessity driving you, consciously noticing patterns, seeking out feedback, really aiming for accuracy.
That's what Julie did. Alberto, maybe through lack of strategy or support, didn't quite get there. Immersion gives you the quantity, the exposure, which is powerful, but it only really works reliably when you add that quality control.
It's not magic, it's methodology.
Well put.
So this leaves us with maybe one final provocative thought for you, the listener, to chew on after this deep dive.
Okay.
We saw that explicit instruction seems necessary for literacy skills, right? Reading and writing. Yet Julie achieved near-native speaking fluency without any formal classes. So think about your own language goals. Is your main aim just conversational fluency? Or is it academic mastery, reading complex texts, writing essays?
Does the goal itself fundamentally change the kind of immersion plus strategies you should be prioritizing?
That's the question to ponder. The goal might just define the game you need to play.
Food for thought.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive into what really makes total immersion tick.
Been fascinating.
We'll catch you next time.